The massive research vessel Stellar Unity drifted silently through the dark space between stars. Inside the ship's medical bay, Kiravel pressed her six-fingered hand against the scanning console and frowned. Her pale blue skin shimmered under the bright lights as she studied the biological data on her screen. "This cannot be right," she whispered to herself in her musical voice. The translator device on her collar quickly changed her words into standard galactic language. Kiravel belonged to the Nithrani people. Like most aliens in the galaxy, her body was perfectly balanced. 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, 2 ears. Everything came in pairs. Her species had been studying other life forms for thousands of years, and almost every creature they met followed the same basic pattern. But the data in front of her showed something very different. 3 days ago, a new human had joined their crew. His name was Jaewon Kim, and he was part of a special program where humans and aliens worked together to learn about each other. Jaewon seemed nice enough. He was tall for a human with dark hair and kind eyes. He smiled a lot and tried his best to communicate with everyone on the ship. The problem was his body scan. According to the medical computer, Jaewon had 3 legs, not 2 like every other creature in the known galaxy. 3. Kiravel touched the screen with her finger and made the image bigger. There it was, clear as starlight. A 3rd appendage coming from his lower body. She had never seen anything like it in all her years as a xenobiologist. "Computer," she said quietly, "show me all files about human anatomy." The screen filled with information, but most of it was confusing. Some files talked about varied reproductive structures, while others mentioned species-specific locomotive arrangements. The descriptions did not match each other at all. One report said humans were bipedal, which meant 2 legs. Another suggested they had complex lower body configurations. Kiravel felt her head start to hurt. How could the database have such different information about the same species? She tried searching for more specific details, but the computer only gave her more confusing answers. Some files seemed to be missing important parts. Others looked like they had been translated poorly from human languages into galactic standard. The medical bay door slid open with a soft hiss. Captain Velthara walked in, her tall frame moving gracefully across the floor. The captain's species, the Zephyrians, had beautiful silver skin that seemed to glow in any light. Her 4 arms moved in careful patterns as she spoke, which was part of how her people communicated. "Kiravel, you look troubled," the captain said. "Is there a problem with our human guest?" Kiravel turned away from the screen, unsure how to explain what she had discovered. "Captain, I have been reviewing Lieutenant Kim's biological data. There appears to be an unusual anatomical feature." "What kind of feature?" "Well," Kiravel paused, choosing her words carefully. "The scans show that he has 3 primary locomotive appendages instead of 2. Captain Velthara's large eyes widened. In all her years commanding ships across the galaxy, she had never heard of a 3-legged sentient species. "Are you certain the scanners are working correctly?" "I have run the diagnostics twice. The equipment is functioning perfectly." The captain moved closer to look at the screen. Her expression grew more concerned as she studied the data. "This is most unusual. Have you spoken to Lieutenant Kim about this?" "Not yet. I wanted to research the matter first, but the database information is contradictory at best." Captain Velthara crossed her arms in thought. "Perhaps this is why humans have been so successful as a species. A 3rd leg would provide superior balance and stability. It might give them advantages in exploration and combat." Word traveled fast on a starship. By the next day, whispers about the 3-legged human had spread throughout the crew. During the morning meal period, alien crew members began stealing glances at Jaewon as he ate his breakfast. He sat alone at a small table, quietly reading something on his personal data pad. Communications Officer Thyran, whose aquatic species had translucent skin and large round eyes, swam past Jaewon's table in her mobility suit. She slowed down and stared at his legs under the table, trying to count them without being obvious. Engineering Chief Mordak, a massive 6-armed creature covered in thick brown fur, watched Jaewon walk across the mess hall. He whispered to his assistant, Notice how smoothly he moves. That third leg must provide incredible stability. Even the ship's AI began acting strangely. It started suggesting modifications to doorways and seating areas to accommodate human tripedal requirements. The computer recommended wider walkways and specialized furniture designs. Jaewon noticed the strange behavior but could not understand what was causing it. People stared at him more than usual, and conversations often stopped when he walked by. Some crew members seemed nervous around him, while others appeared fascinated. He tried asking his human colleague, Dr. Hana Park, if she had noticed anything unusual. Hana worked as a cultural liaison, helping humans and aliens understand each other better. Everyone's been acting weird lately, Jaewon told her during their shift change. They keep asking me strange questions about walking and balance. Yesterday, someone asked if I needed special shoes. Hana shrugged, equally puzzled. Maybe it's just curiosity about human physiology. You know how interested they get about our differences. Neither of them realized that across the ship, alien scientists were having serious discussions about human evolution and the remarkable adaptation that allowed their species to develop a third leg for enhanced mobility. The misunderstanding was just beginning. The ship's mess hall buzzed with excited whispers as crew members from different species gathered around small tables. Everyone seemed to be talking about the same thing, but they spoke in hushed voices and kept looking toward the corner where Jaewon sat eating his morning meal. Thiran, the communications officer with her pale, translucent skin, floated in her water-filled mobility suit near a group of engineers. Her large round eyes darted nervously toward Jaewon before she spoke. "I have been thinking about this all night," she said in her bubbling voice. "How does he coordinate 3 legs while walking? It must require incredible balance." Mordak, the massive furry engineering chief, nodded his 6 arms in agreement. "Yes, I have been watching him move through the corridors. He makes it look so easy, but it must take years of practice." At another table, Science Officer Zalthor from the crystal-skinned Veltari people was drawing diagrams on his datapad. "Look at this," he showed his colleagues. "If humans have 3 legs, they could distribute their weight more evenly. This would make them much more stable on uneven surfaces." Young Ensign Krixta, whose bird-like species had hollow bones and feathered arms, chirped excitedly. "Maybe that is why humans are such good explorers. With 3 legs, they could climb mountains and cross difficult terrain better than any 2-legged species." The conversations continued throughout the ship. In the engine room, workers discussed how human 3-leg anatomy might affect their work in zero gravity. In the medical bay, alien doctors wondered if they needed to modify their treatment procedures for 3-legged patients. Meanwhile, Jaewon finished his breakfast completely unaware of the growing fascination surrounding him. As he stood up and walked toward the exit, dozens of alien eyes followed his every step. He moved normally like any human would, but to the watching aliens, his bipedal gait seemed mysterious and impossible. "How does he do it?" whispered Security Officer Learden, whose snake-like lower body allowed her to slither rather than walk. "I only see 2 legs touching the ground, but the scans clearly show 3 appendages." "Perhaps the 3rd leg is retractable," suggested medical technician Quintel. "Humans might be able to extend or withdraw it as needed." Dr. Hana Park noticed the strange behavior when she entered the mess hall for her late breakfast. Every conversation stopped as she walked by, and she could feel dozens of eyes watching her legs as she moved. She sat down at an empty table and activated her communication device. "Jaewon," she said quietly, "are you free to meet me in Lab 7? Something weird is happening." 20 minutes later, Jaewon arrived at the small research laboratory where Hana was waiting. She looked concerned and kept glancing toward the door. "Everyone is staring at us," she said without greeting. Not just curious looks, but really intense staring, especially at our legs when we walk. Jaewon sat down across from her. "I noticed it too. Yesterday, Ensign Krixta asked me if I ever got tired from coordinating my locomotive appendages. I had no idea what she meant. And Thiran asked me about tripedal adaptation advantages," Hana added. "When I told her I did not understand, she looked at me like I was lying." Before they could discuss it further, the laboratory door opened, and Captain Velthara entered. With her graceful 4-armed stride, Behind her came Chief Medical Officer Nexara, a tall being with purple skin and multiple eyes arranged around her head. "Dr. Park, Lieutenant Kim," the captain said formally, "we need to discuss some important matters regarding human physiology and ship accommodations." The two humans exchanged confused glances. "Of course, Captain," Hana replied. "What can we help you with?" Chief Medical Officer Nexara stepped forward, her various eyes blinking at different intervals. "We want to ensure that our ship facilities meet your unique biological needs. Specifically, we are concerned about seating arrangements, doorway widths, and exercise equipment modifications." "I'm sorry," Jaewon said slowly. "But why would we need special modifications?" Captain Velthera's silver skin shimmered as she gestured with her forearms. "Well, your tripedal locomotion requires different spatial considerations than standard bipedal species." "Our what?" Hana asked, her voice rising slightly. "Your 3 legs," explained Dr. Nexara patiently. "The biological scans clearly show that human males possess 3 primary locomotive appendages. We want to make sure you have adequate space and support." The silence in the laboratory stretched for several long seconds. Jaewon's mouth opened and closed without making any sound. Hana stared at the aliens with growing horror and understanding. "Captain," Hana said very carefully, "humans have 2 legs. Just 2. We are bipedal, like most humanoid species in the galaxy." Now it was the aliens' turn to look confused. Captain Velthara's forearms moved in agitated patterns. "But the medical scans clearly indicate 3 appendages extending from the lower torso area." "The scans must be wrong," Jaewon said firmly. "Look at us. Count them yourself. 2 legs each." Dr. Nexara's multiple eyes focused on their legs with scientific intensity. "I can observe 2 appendages in contact with the ground, yes. But the AudioBook scans show a 3rd structure. Perhaps it is retractable, or used only during specific activities." The misunderstanding was growing worse by the minute. All around the ship, alien crew members were developing more elaborate theories about human 3-leg anatomy and its evolutionary advantages. Some suggested that humans could switch between bipedal and tripedal movement depending on the situation. Others believed that the 3rd leg was hidden inside special clothing. In the engineering section, Mordak was already designing new chair configurations for the human quarters. In the medical bay, Kiravel was preparing detailed research proposals about tripedal locomotion studies. Nobody realized that they were all completely wrong about basic human anatomy, and the confusion was about to get much worse. Kiravel had made up her mind. As the ship's chief xenobiologist, it was her responsibility to solve this mystery properly. She gathered her portable scanning equipment and headed toward the botanical laboratory where Lieutenant Jaewon Kim was working on his daily research assignment. The laboratory was quiet except for the soft humming of growth chambers and air recyclers. Jaewon stood at a workstation, carefully examining plant samples from Earth that he had brought aboard the ship. His dark hair fell slightly over his eyes as he concentrated on his microscope. "Lieutenant Kim," Kiravel called softly as she entered. Her blue skin seemed to glow under the bright laboratory lights, and her 6-fingered hands carried several pieces of scanning equipment. Jaewon looked up and smiled. "Oh, hello, Kiravel. Working late tonight?" "Actually, I was hoping to speak with you about an important scientific matter." She set her equipment down on a nearby table and activated her translator device. "I would like to conduct some xenobiological observations if you do not mind." "Sure," Jaewon said, turning back to his plant samples. "Always happy to help with research. What kind of observations?" Kiravel pulled out her portable scanner and adjusted its settings. "I am particularly interested in human locomotive patterns and anatomical coordination. Very fascinating from a scientific perspective." "Okay," Jaewon replied, though he sounded a bit confused. "What do you need me to do?" "Could you please demonstrate your normal walking pattern? I would like to record how you coordinate your 3 primary locomotive appendages during standard movement." Jaewon froze, his hand stopping halfway to another plant sample. He turned around slowly to face her. "My what?" "Your 3 legs," Kiravel said patiently, holding up her scanner. I am very curious about how you achieve such smooth coordination. Do you alternate in a specific pattern, or is the movement more instinctive? Kiravel, Jaewon said carefully. I have 2 legs. Just 2 legs, like most humanoid species. The alien scientist's crystalline features showed polite disagreement. Lieutenant, I have reviewed your biological scans multiple times. The data clearly indicates 3 primary locomotive appendages extending from your lower torso region. The scans are wrong, Jaewon said firmly. Perhaps discussing anatomical differences is considered inappropriate in human culture? Kiravel suggested. I assure you, this is purely for scientific research. I have no intention of making you uncomfortable. Before Jaewon could respond, the laboratory door slid open, and Engineering Chief Mordak entered. His massive furry body filled most of the doorway, and his 6 arms gestured excitedly. Kiravel, I heard you were conducting the tripedal research. May I observe? This could help with my equipment modifications. Of course, Kiravel replied. I was just asking Lieutenant Kim to demonstrate normal human locomotion. Mordak's dark eyes gleamed with scientific interest. Excellent. I have been wondering how the 3rd leg provides stability during rapid movement. Word of the investigation spread quickly through the ship's communication system. Within minutes, curious crew members began gathering outside the laboratory. Security Officer Learden pressed her serpentine face against the observation window. Communications Officer Theron floated in her mobility suit near the door, her large eyes wide with fascination. Dr. Hannah Park arrived just as the crowd was reaching its peak. She pushed through the gathered aliens and activated the laboratory's entry system. What in the galaxy is happening here? She demanded as she entered. Jaewon looked at her with desperate relief. They want me to demonstrate 3-legged walking. They want you to what? Kiravel stepped forward with her scanner still active. Dr. Park, perfect timing. As another human specimen, you could help us understand the variations in tripedal locomotion between male and female humans. We don't have 3 legs, Hannah shouted, her voice echoing through the laboratory. We have 2 legs each, count them. The crowd outside pressed closer to the windows. Whispered conversations filled the corridor as aliens debated what they were witnessing. Maybe they are embarrassed about their 3rd leg, suggested Ensign Krixta to her companion. Or perhaps it only extends during specific activities, replied Science Officer Zalthor. Inside the laboratory, Kiravel was becoming more puzzled. But the biological scans are very clear. See? She activated a holographic display showing the contested medical data. The hologram showed a human body outline with what appeared to be 3 appendages extending from the lower section. Jaewon and Hannah stared at the image with growing horror and understanding. Oh no, Jaewon whispered, his face turning red. Oh no, no, no. What? Hannah asked. Then she looked more carefully at the holographic display, and her face went pale. Oh. Security Chief Borum Lee arrived at that moment, pushing through the crowd of spectators. He was the 3rd human aboard the ship and had been experiencing the same strange treatment as his colleagues. What's all the commotion about? He asked, entering the laboratory. They think we have 3 legs, Hannah told him weakly. Borum looked at the holographic display and immediately understood. His face went through several different expressions before settling on mortified resignation. Captain Velthara needs to see this, he said quietly. The crowd outside had grown larger. Alien crew members from every department were gathering to witness what they believed was historic documentation of human tripedal anatomy. Some had brought their own scanning equipment. Others were taking notes on their personal data devices. Captain Velthara arrived with Chief Medical Officer Nexara and several senior staff members. The corridor was now completely packed with curious aliens, all trying to get a better view of the investigation. This is getting out of control, Hannah muttered. Jaewon nodded, looking around at all the expectant alien faces. We need to fix this before it gets worse. But it was already too late. The misunderstanding had reached critical mass, and soon the entire galactic scientific community would be involved. The main conference room of the Stellar Unity had never been so crowded. Captain Velthara stood at the front of the room, her 4 silver arms gesturing proudly as she addressed the assembled crew. and the dozens of holographic figures that filled the space around them. Today marks a historic moment in galactic xenobiology, the captain announced. We are privileged to present the first comprehensive study of human tripedal locomotion to the Galactic Science Council. The holographic representatives flickered slightly as they adjusted their transmission settings. Scientists from across the galaxy had joined the emergency session to witness what they believed would be groundbreaking research. Dr. Zephron from the Crystalline Collective leaned forward in his projection, his multifaceted eyes gleaming with interest. Professor Yilmoth of the Gas Giant Research Station floated in her containment sphere, bubbling with excitement. Kiravel stood beside a large holographic display, her blue skin shimmering nervously under the bright lights. She had spent the past week preparing her presentation, reviewing every scan and measurement multiple times. This was the most important moment of her scientific career. Esteemed colleagues, she began, her translator broadcasting her words to the assembled xenobiologists. Today we reveal remarkable discoveries about Terran human anatomy. Our research has uncovered a unique evolutionary adaptation that challenges our understanding of bipedal locomotion. In the back of the room, Jawan, Hana, and Borum sat together looking increasingly uncomfortable. They had been invited as living specimens for the historic documentation, though none of them fully understood what was about to happen. The human species, Kiravel continued, has developed what we believe to be the first known case of functional tripedal locomotion in a sentient species. She activated the holographic display, showing the biological scan data that had started the entire confusion. Gasps echoed through the room as alien scientists examined the projected images. The hologram clearly showed what appeared to be a human body with 3 appendages extending from the lower torso region. Fascinating, exclaimed Dr. Morthek from the Deep Space Research Academy. How do they maintain balance during rapid movement? The 3rd appendage appears to serve multiple functions, Kiravel explained, warming to her subject. Our observations suggest it provides superior stability during locomotion, while also serving important reproductive purposes. Jawan felt his face growing hot. He looked sideways at Hana and Borum, both of whom appeared to be sinking lower in their chairs. This evolutionary adaptation, Kiravel continued enthusiastically, explains how humans became such successful explorers and colonizers. The additional locomotive appendage would provide significant advantages in varied terrain and zero-gravity environments. Professor Velquin from the Outer Rim Biology Institute raised one of her tentacles. Have you observed this tripedal movement directly? The implications for our understanding of evolutionary biology would be enormous. We have conducted extensive observational studies, Kiravel replied. However, the humans appear to be somewhat private about demonstrating their unique locomotive abilities. Cultural sensitivity, we believe. The holographic audience murmured with understanding. Many species had cultural taboos around displaying certain anatomical features. Captain Velthara stepped forward. Perhaps our human guests would be willing to provide some direct insight into their remarkable adaptation. All eyes in the room turned toward the 3 humans. The holographic scientist leaned forward eagerly, waiting to hear from the subjects of this groundbreaking research. Jawan felt sweat forming on his forehead. The moment had finally arrived when he would have to explain the truth to a room full of the galaxy's most distinguished scientists. He looked at the expectant faces around him, both physical and holographic. Actually, he said, his voice barely above a whisper, there's been a misunderstanding. Speak louder, please, called Dr. Zephron from his crystal projection. We are eager to learn about your species' remarkable evolution. Jawan cleared his throat and stood up slowly. There's been a very big misunderstanding, he said more loudly. Humans don't have 3 legs. The room fell completely silent. The holographic scientists stopped their excited chattering. Even the ship's environmental system seemed to quiet down. I'm sorry, said Captain Velthara, her silver features showing confusion. We have 2 legs, Hana said, also standing up. Just 2 legs like most humanoid species. We are bipedal. But the scans, Kiravel started, pointing at her holographic display. The scans are showing something else, Borum explained, his face red with embarrassment. Something that's, well, it's not a leg. The silence stretched longer. Several of the holographic scientists began whispering among themselves in their native languages. Could you clarify what the scans are detecting? Asked Professor Yilmoth. From her floating sphere, Jaewon took a deep breath. This was going to be the most embarrassing moment of his entire life. But there was no way around it. With as much dignity as he could manage, he began to explain the actual nature of human male anatomy to a room full of alien scientists. You see, he said carefully, human males have external reproductive organs. The scan was detecting those organs, not a third leg for walking. The silence that followed was so complete that Jaewon could hear his own heartbeat. The holographic representative stared at him with expressions ranging from confusion to dawning understanding. So, Captain Velthara said very slowly, humans are bipedal? Very bipedal, all three humans confirmed simultaneously. Dr. Zephron's crystal form flickered as he processed this information. And the third appendage serves only reproductive functions? Only reproductive functions, Jaewon confirmed weakly. The revelation hit the assembled scientists like a shockwave. Excited conversations erupted throughout the room as the implications of their massive misunderstanding became clear. Kiravel stared at her research data with growing horror, realizing that her entire presentation was based on a fundamental anatomical misinterpretation. The most embarrassing moment in galactic scientific history had just occurred. The days following what crew members quietly called the Great Misunderstanding brought unexpected changes to the stellar unity. Instead of the embarrassment and ridicule that Jaewon, Hana, and Borum had feared, something remarkable happened. The alien crew members began treating the humans with a new kind of respect. Kiravel was the first to approach Jaewon after the disastrous presentation. She found him in the botanical laboratory 3 days later, quietly working on his plant samples as if nothing had happened. Her blue skin seemed dimmer than usual, and her 6-fingered hands trembled slightly as she spoke. Lieutenant Kim, she said softly, I owe you a sincere apology. My assumptions and poor research methods caused you great embarrassment. Jaewon looked up from his microscope and smiled gently. It's okay, Kiravel. We all make mistakes. But this was not just a mistake, she replied. This was a failure of proper scientific method. I made assumptions based on incomplete data instead of asking direct questions. In my culture, this is considered a serious breach of research ethics. She sat down across from him, her crystalline eyes reflecting the laboratory lights. I have been thinking about this situation for days. Your patience and kindness in explaining the truth has taught me something very important about scientific inquiry. What's that? Jaewon asked. That direct communication is always better than assumption, no matter how awkward the conversation might be. Kiravel activated her personal datapad and showed him a document. I have written a research paper about this incident. Not about human anatomy, but about the importance of proper methodology in xenobiological studies. Jaewon read the title, Beyond Assumption, the Critical Role of Direct Observation and Communication in Cross-Species Research. He looked up at her with surprise. You're going to publish this? The Galactic Science Academy has already accepted it for their next journal, Kiravel said proudly. They want to use our experience as a teaching example for young scientists. Sometimes the most important discoveries come from understanding our mistakes. Word of Kiravel's paper spread quickly through the scientific community. Within weeks, universities across the galaxy were using the Great Anatomical Misunderstanding as a case study in their xenobiology courses. The incident became a famous example of how cultural assumptions could lead to completely wrong conclusions. Captain Velthara called the 3 humans to her office one morning. Her silver skin glowed warmly as she gestured for them to sit in, the specially designed chairs that had been intended for their tripedal anatomy. I have received communication from Galactic Command, she announced. They want to implement new protocols for interspecies research based on what happened here. New protocols? Hana asked. Yes, all research vessels will now be required to have direct consultation with species representatives before making any assumptions about their biology or culture. You three have become unwitting pioneers in diplomatic relations. Borum laughed. We're pioneers in embarrassment, you mean? Not embarrassment, the captain corrected seriously. Understanding. What happened here has shown the entire galaxy something important about diversity and communication. The changes aboard the Stellar Unity were practical as well as philosophical. Engineering Chief Mordak approached Jaewon in the mess hall during the evening meal period. Lieutenant Kim, the massive furry alien, said, settling his 6 arms carefully as he sat down, I wanted to thank you. Thank me? For what? For being patient with our confusion. In my species, if someone misunderstood our anatomy so completely, there would be great anger and possibly violence. But you explained everything calmly and with respect. Mordak gestured around the mess hall, where aliens and humans were eating together and talking freely. Look around. Everyone is more comfortable now. We ask questions instead of making guesses. We talk directly instead of whispering behind each other's backs. This was true. The atmosphere on the ship had become more open and friendly. Crew members from different species sat together more often, asking honest questions about each other's cultures and biology. The fear of saying something wrong had been replaced by a desire to learn correctly. Communications. Officer Thyron floated over, in her mobility suit, her translucent skin glowing softly. May I join you? She asked. Of course, Jaewon replied. I have been learning about human reproduction and family structures, she said. It is very different from my species, but also very interesting. Thank you for being willing to teach us. Similar. Conversations were happening throughout the ship. Science Officer Zalthor was learning about human emotions from Hana. Security Officer Learden was discussing human combat techniques with Borum. The crew was discovering that their differences made them stronger as a team. 6 months later, as Jaewon prepared for his transfer back to Earth, the entire crew gathered in the main hangar bay for a farewell ceremony. Captain Velthara presented him with a crystal sculpture that had been created by the ship's artists. This represents the bridge between understanding and assumption, she explained. You have taught us that the universe is far more complex and wonderful than we realized. Every species has unique qualities that deserve respect and proper study. Kiravel stepped forward with her own gift. This contains all the research we have done together, she said, handing him a data crystal. Real research based on honest questions and direct observation. I hope it will help other humans and aliens avoid the mistakes we made. As Jaewon's shuttle prepared to depart, he looked back at the Stellar Unity through the small window. The ship continued its mission among the stars, but now it carried something new with it. The crew had learned that diversity was not something to assume or fear, but something to explore with patience, respect, and open communication. The 3-legged human incident had become a legend throughout the galaxy, but not as a joke. It was remembered as the moment when different species learned to truly listen to each other, and that made all the embarrassment worthwhile.